Good afternoon, everyone. If folks can take their seat, we'd like to start our meeting momentarily. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to call our meeting to order for Monday, October 24. Confirmation of agenda. Item carry. Thank you. Confirmation of minute of September 26, 2016. It's the minute carry. Thank you. Thank you. Declaration of interest. Inquires. I didn't receive any inquiry. Item number 1 is the chief's verbal report, so we'll hold item number 1. Item number 2 is a report we received. We received technical briefing this morning at 11 o'clock, and then at 2 o'clock it was open to the media and the public. This is a very important work has been done. It's been taking a few years, but we are here in many thanks to the research team from York University, and they are with us tonight, Dr. Lauren Foster and Dr. Les Jacobs and Dr. Shaheen Azmi from the Human Rights Commission are here as well. I know we had a lot of questions and answers early most of the day today in this audience, but this report, if we receive it today, the next public portion of this will be on November 24th, and that will be open to our community partner, and the professors also be among us at the time to answer any question and go through the information. If there's no question to the panel, I'd like to ask them to stand up and take a bow. Thank you very much, folks, for doing a good job for us today. Thank you. And thanks to our staff, the chief as the leader on this one, and also Deputy Chief Keeley, Pat Flanagan, and Laurie Fanton for really being with us all day and go through the process step by step. So to the working team in Ottawa, thank you so much. On the item, is the item received, or we have any question for the panel? Received, thank you. Thank you very much. November 24th, and we'll be advertising this meeting as we get closer. Item number 3 is the budget direction and timetable. That the Ottawa Police Service Board directs staff to prepare the 2017 draft operating and capital budget based on 2% tax increase and estimate 1.3% increase in taxes resulting from growth in assessment base. Item number 2, approve the 2017 budget review and approval timetable. On item number 3, is the item carry? Carry. Thank you very much, folks. Item number 4, and we do have a presentation by our friends and colleagues from the National Capital Area Crime Stopper, so we'll hold item number 4. Item number 5, appointment of Special Constable, Ottawa Police Service, is the item. Okay. Item number 6 is appointment of Special Constable, Carleton University. Okay. Item number 7 is the Public Consultation Policy Annual Report, that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Receive. Item number 8, Financial Status Report, third quarter 2016, that the Ottawa Police Service received this report for information. Thank you. Item number 9, Performance Report, third quarter 2016, the Chief's report, that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Thank you. Item number 10, Workforce Management Report, third quarter, that the Ottawa Police received. The Ottawa Police Service Board approved the appointment of the sworn officer identified in document 2. Item number 2, receive this report for information. So the item carry and receive. And Chief, as I advised you in the last board meeting, if it's possible, when we have a new promotion, if you can bring them to the board and introduce the people who's been promoted. I'm talking about the senior level, and so because sometimes they get their promotion and the workforce report doesn't get here until quarterly, so we like to meet them earlier if it's possible.
That's fine, Mr. Chair. So the direction is to just brief the board on promotions that have happened prior to the report being presented?
Correct, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 11, Complaint Report, Part 5, Police Service Board Act, third quarter. Is the item received? Item 12, Legal Service Report, third quarter 2016. The Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Item 13, Board Monitoring Requirement Status Report, third quarter. Is the item received? Item 14, Response to Inquiry 116-03, Ottawa Police Service Accommodation. Hold by Member Turney. Item number 15 is inquiry about the marijuana dispensary in Ottawa, and I believe we have a public speaking on this item, so we'll hold item 15. Item 16, Report on SIU investigation. The Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. See. Item 17, Outstanding Board Inquiries and Motion, October 2016. Is the item received? Item 18, we have letters of commendation. The Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. See, thank you. And we'll go to item number 1 and the Chief's verbal report. Chief Bordelot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, this was an important day for the Ottawa Police Service and our community in presenting the traffic stop race data collection project. It is it's a significant milestone for our police service and the community, and it's groundbreaking research which couldn't have happened without the professionalism and the dedication of the members of the Ottawa Police Service and the research team. So I want to acknowledge them again for the work that they've done. I want to thank our investigators and the many officers who worked to identify, then arrest the suspect in a homicide earlier Saturday morning. Patrol officers, tactical officers, and K-9 were all dispatched. An individual is in custody and charges will be laid in the matter. Talk about a K-9 track. Earlier this week, our officers responded to a robbery at a Quickie on Bell Street. Two masked men walked into the store about 5 a.m. while another masked man waited outside the store. The men brandished a crowbar, threatened the clerk, and then grabbed cigarettes before fleeing. K-9 Frigo and his handler, Constable Jamie Desormeaux, were soon on scene, supported by Constable Mike Edens and Shabeen Tucker. They began a track locating the suspects and the stolen cigarettes at an address on Cambridge Street. All 3 individuals were arrested and are now before the courts. Since last February, Malcolm Edwards was wanted by the Niagara Regional Police Service on a Canada-wide warrant for numerous offences, including 3 counts of attempted murder. On October 18th, the Niagara requested help from our Guns and Gangs unit, and the 23-year-old was arrested by our service within 8 hours. And I want to recognize the heroic efforts of Constable Matt Jones and Sergeant Andrew Pitcock. On October 5th, they were first on scene at an apartment fire on Woudenberg Avenue and saw fire and smoke coming from a 6th-floor apartment window on Woudenberg Avenue. The 2 officers immediately entered the building to provide assistance and alerted the residents. When they reached the 5th floor, they found residents attempting to exit the building through heavy smoke conditions. Working in dangerous conditions, the 2 risked harm while ensuring that all residents were safely evacuated from their apartments and from the hallway. We're all proud of their actions that day. Earlier this month, our airport policing section was contacted by the RCMP in Iqaluit regarding 2 people traveling to Ottawa carrying a large quantity of cash to purchase controlled substances. On October 15th, both subjects were checked in at the airport, and pre-board alarms indicated 2 bags containing contraband. Officers attended, arrested 2 people carrying the controlled substances worth about $165,000 in Iqaluit. And finally, today we launched our new Strategic Operations Center, or OPSOC. The new center acts as a hub for day-to-day frontline operations, providing a citywide situational and operational awareness of incidents, events which are planned or unplanned, or road blockages. Many people contributed to the development of this center. I want to thank Deputy Chief Jill Skinner, Inspector Murray Knowles, Director Randy Maher, and Sergeant P.A. Tremblay for their work pulling this together. Data analysis to support proactive and problem-solving activities will also be directed through the OPSOC. It will have access to key information to assist officers whether they are en route to call, on scene, or the early stages of an investigation. Depending on the incidents, Operations Center personnel will be able to direct frontline resources and specialized or support units where they are needed across the city. And this is the way, one of the key ways that we are redesigning our service delivery model to make sure that we are deploying the right resources at the right time to deal with the ever-changing complexities that we're feeling on a day-to-day basis. So congratulations to the team. That's my report, Mr. Chair, subject to questions.
Thank you very much, Chief. And any question from our colleague to the Chief? On the Chief's report, to see. Thank you. Item number 4, we have the National Capital Area Crime Stopper semi-annual update. And we do have a presentation from Robert McMullen, the President of National Capital, Richard, so if we can call you in, sorry.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the board and the police service for inviting us to participate and to share some of our successes with you. As you know, we've given a report, but I just want to touch on a few things. You know, Crime Stoppers over the years has really developed and grown in this community. One of the challenges we have, and we've spoken about it in the past, is that we can't share the successes, specifically around the items that we're able to contribute to a safer city and a better environment for the citizens here. So we do share our statistics, and so I can tell you that so far in 2016, it's been an impressive year. September, we received 499 tips anonymously from the public, which was one of the largest tips that we've ever received. And this is trending such that we're going to be over 4,000 tips from the public in 2016, which is tremendous. But more importantly, it's what those tips turn into in terms of the successful outcomes for law enforcement. So far this year, we've had tips that have resulted in 42 arrests, 35 criminal cases being cleared, 159 criminal charges, $263,000 worth of narcotics being seized, and over $95,000 in property recovered. And these are positive things for individual members of our community, and certainly for the community at large. And so it's been great. We've also contributed to one firearm so far this year being taken off the streets, and obviously there's a huge impact to community safety with regards to items like that. So great results. I wish we could share more of the successful outcomes, because I think that would help to connect us better with the community and certainly with the media and other stakeholders. But I can tell you the successful outcomes that Crime Stoppers tips contribute is substantial. In many cases, it's tips that not only help identify suspects and seize property and narcotics, but also aid in the prevention of crime and serious incidents, as we're starting to see more and more of as well. Since my last presentation, we've held our annual general meeting in June. I'm pleased to announce that we have a new vice president. Eric Soupanin has joined us. He's been on the board for quite some time, and we have a new secretary, and Stephen Merrill's also a member of our board for quite some time. And Sharon Ebers was reappointed as treasurer, and I was re-elected as president for another 3-year term. So I'm pleased with that, and it's a real privilege and honor to lead this organization and help us continue to move forward. So it's through the partnerships and relationships that we've been able to build, including this, and certainly with our police service partners as well. June was also a chance for us to take part in the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers annual conference held in Sudbury. Sergeant Wong and myself brought along 2 of our youth volunteers and allowed them to participate. And, I can share with you that our program is in an enviable position across Ontario for some of the strides that we've made, but specifically around our youth engagement and connecting with youth in our community. And that's been very, very nice to see. Community outreach continues to be one of the milestones that I think contributes to our success. Last year we had tremendous success with our tips, and we believe, or I believe, that has a direct result on the community engagement that we're able to do. So whether it's, being at a Loblaws in Vanier or Gloucester for assisting food bank initiatives, whether it's being at Police Week activities that we participate in across the city, all of those things contribute to a success. We've been to many community safety events, barbecues, Ottawa community housing events. All of these things contribute to connections and stronger engagement and connection with the community, and that's really important in our belief anyways. We also contributed some time and energy at the NACFI Cup held in Centertown, which was a great opportunity to connect with the community, specifically in the Centertown area. It was the first time we participated in that, and were welcomed by MPP Yasser Naqvi. And that was a fun event. We engaged some assistance of the Ottawa Police Yippee students that enjoyed participating with us as well. So any opportunity like that is worthwhile. This past weekend, we got a chance to participate in Canada to support Chrysalis House and the Canada Food Cupboard, 2 worthwhile charities. And through some connections we had made, they invited us to participate, and it was a great opportunity to connect with young families and young people in the community. Just wanted to highlight one of our youth volunteers and our youth coordinator, Courtney Harmison, kind of took the lead on the role. And she's a young Algonquin student and has been participating with us for quite some time. She was able to connect with Walmart Canada and secured a donation of over $6,000 in pajamas for Chrysalis House and the food bank. And I thought that was just such a great way, one, to connect young people in the business community, but also to have a positive impact. So well done with her. The Crime Stoppers program is busy and active. Sergeant Wong and volunteers are going to be out helping the Big Brothers and Sisters. They're hosting an initiative for grade 10 students this Wednesday and Thursday. those types of engagements are really important for communities and associations and organizations to do. And as you know, we've all said before, partnerships, relationships, and collaboration is a key. The more you can do those things, the better off we are together. And I think that's something that's really important. You know, earlier this year, we also took an opportunity to connect with our friends at the Ottawa Fire Service, and so partnered with them specifically around the crime of arson. And so they've put our decals on their arson investigative vehicles, and those are really important steps to engage. We can't do it without funding. Funding is obviously important. As you guys know, the Crime Stoppers model is not to get direct taxpayer support. We do things with local funding. This past year, we held our annual golf tournament, raised over $15,000 for the program, and we continue to solicit funds from not only the public, but business groups and community organizations as well. You know, as we look forward into January, it's not only going to be Ottawa 2017 events, but January is Crime Stoppers Month. And we participate in a number of events across the city to engage the public and solicit tips about crimes that they can submit anonymously to us. So we'll be out again. Look for us at a whole host of different events. And lastly, I just wanted to take a moment and talk about some of the changes that are coming for the Crime Stoppers program. Change is sometimes difficult, and personally, I believe you have to embrace change and you have to seize those opportunities to advance. And this year will mark Sergeant Art Wong's final term with the Crime Stoppers program, and I can tell you that over the last 4 years, Sergeant Wong has provided unimaginable support, leadership, and dedication to the program. And he's a great asset, as I'm sure our friends at the Ottawa Police Service know, but you guys should know that he's a strong contributor and a great leader for this organization and certainly for Crime Stoppers. So, you know, we're looking forward to a new coordinator, and the future is going to be bright. I'm anxious to be back and share with you some of our other successes as they come. So, be happy to take any questions.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Richard, and for your good work. And now you have to have the capacity of past president, so you're on for the next 4 years as a past president.
Well, yeah, you have me as a president for another 3 years, Chair. So.
Councillor Harder has a question for you, Richard.
Yeah, and actually I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say, as somebody that's been here for quite a while, what an amazing job I think you've done, because crime prevention had, and what you do had taken very much a back seat, I think. It was a struggle, and you came on with enthusiasm. I'm not surprised that they voted to keep you on the island for another 3 years, and you know, from my perspective, I think we're all very happy that you have. So hope we can help out more as you need us.
Well, appreciate any support.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tony.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also wanted to echo Councillor Harder's comments, and specifically around the supports you guys have provided when it comes to Jasmine Crescent. As you know, we still meet monthly. You guys participate in that, and it means the world to my community, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Chief?
Richard, congratulations. I, too, on behalf of the police service, am glad to see you stick around for another 3 years. Your leadership has really helped Crime Stoppers maintain its position and grow its position, the important role it plays in our community, keeping Ottawa safe. And we talk about, you know, the police service can't do this alone, and Crime Stoppers is one of those key partners out there. You're either physically at events, you're on social media, you're everywhere, so it's great to see. And thank you very much for the work that Art has done as well. I know that he's done a tremendous job. So Art, thank you very much. You're not done yet, but we'll look forward to your new replacement. So thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. And item number 4 is received. Thank you very much. Item 14 is inquiry we held from the last meeting, and I believe, Member Turner, you have question about item 14, response to inquiry. Steve Bell is here.
60 in 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. I'm not sure who I best ask the questions to. I think Sergeant Bell was heavily involved.
We'll ask the chief, and then he can direct his staff. Go ahead.
Great. So first of all, I want to thank you for this report. I asked for it back, I believe it was at the end of March, for this report. And I know there's a lot in there. It really explains why accommodation is the way it is and what factors are involved. I still have a couple of questions related to this. I just want to make sure the numbers that I see there, originally when the numbers came out, I believe the numbers were, we were given the number about 160 out of 1,400. But as the report was developed, now it's actually out of 1,340. So it's a little closer to 12% of our workforce is on accommodation. And I understand that there's reasons in certain areas why that's the case. As I look across the country, and I've spoken to two other departments, I'm sure we can find examples very easily of where other departments may be at the same level or higher, but I found a drastic number that are much lower. I guess my question is, do we feel this is indicative of a morale issue within our department? Is this something that we should be concerned about?
No, it's hard to compare apples to apples in this type of collection of data because police services don't all gather the same data the same way. So I'll turn it over to, with respect to the data and the numbers you're talking about, I'll turn it to Director General Fraser and Superintendent Bell, who worked on the report.
Thank you, Chief. I think this is one of the areas as we've started to bring some data to the table that we don't have there isn't anywhere that there's a consistent definition of accommodation. And we pointed that out in the report on page 7 that we take a view, and we've cited some examples of what accommodation is. And will be clear that for permanent accommodations, for example, they range from very significant physical accommodations, depending on perhaps there's a permanent injury in the background, to issues, and recently we have them with our vehicles, where some of our members, for example, require, because of their size or their height, that they require the SUV vehicle and can't drive the Taurus or the Impala because it's too small. We record that as an accommodation because on their shift, they need to be accommodated in that vehicle or they can't perform their road duty. Other services may not record an accommodation like that. We may record that if someone has, and you see that in the definitions, that if they have overhead lights that create migraine headaches for them, that we'll record that as an accommodation. And when they switch roles, which happens, about 70% of our people get transferred every year, then when we place them in a new environment, that is something that we have to accommodate. We take this pretty seriously, and we try to do our best to create the physical environment that will help people carry out their role, and we're very transparent about the numbers and the arrangements that we'll go to try and make sure that folks have the physical environment they need to work in so that they contribute productively.
And thank you for that.
And just on the question of morale, Member Tierney, as an employer, we have a responsibility to respect people's medical accommodations, their family status accommodations, whether it's a human rights code related or an injury that they've sustained. And I think it's the responsible thing to do to respect those and to challenge those that we may have questions about. But I think we have that duty to ensure that the members of the Ottawa Police Service who have restrictions for a variety of reasons, that we respect those and to make sure that they continue to contribute to our police service.
And thank you for that, Chief, and I truly do respect that. And again, this shouldn't be taken in any way as some kind of assault on people that truly require accommodations. That's not what this is about. This is about what I've heard from the membership, which there's some concern, as well as there's also another concern from, I'd like to see boots on the ground. I mean, the more we can see boots on the ground, probably the better. And if we have officers, and I believe one of the questions was asked, and I don't know if I received a response, maybe you can assist in this, our first 5-year officers aren't the breadwinners of our organization. After 5 years, you're making dramatically more. So if we have a lot of people in that 160 category on accommodation in the first 5 years, that could be possibly less that many people. Even though we backfill with other people, it's still a concern for me, and I think I want to keep my finger on the pulse on this. Maybe that's a question. Do we have numbers on how many in the first 5 year constables are on accommodation?
We can get that data, yes.
And I think this is part of the other issue is, first of all, I'm commending the report. It's well done. There's a lot of information in there. I love seeing this. It really paints the picture. But it did take, and forgive me, last board meeting, thank you, Chair, for holding this over. It took 5 months to generate that data. And as board members, I would look for, I'd like to be able to see, we're in, it's 2016. It should be relatively easy to pull this information out so we can keep our finger on the pulse on this, because I'm going to bring this up again probably in another couple of months. And I'm hoping that we're not only talking about the numbers, but are we looking at solutions on why this is?
Mr. Chair, the request was made on May 30th, 2016. We presented the report at the September board meeting. So I don't know if there was a board meeting in August. I don't believe so. It's not data that, as a police service, we recognize that we tabulate on a regular basis. It certainly puts the issue at the forefront, and I thank the member for bringing it up front. It is something that we hear from our membership as well, as far as the number of people who require long-term accommodations. And so we're in the process of designing a process or a structure that will help us report this on a regular basis from a staffing perspective, internally and to the board.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I understand that. When I went back and forth looking for information, I was said, look, we're going to supply it in one format so people understand what we're talking about. We don't want it to be piecemeal. I think we've had a good primer in this document. It's very thorough. It explains the differences between the categories. But at this point, should it be so difficult as a board member to ask at one board meeting, what are the numbers now? What do they look like? Is 30 days acceptable to get the information back? It, frankly, might not even have to come to the board. Maybe it's something that can be done internally. I'm just looking for that speed of response and accurate numbers, not estimations, so we can keep our finger on this. If it is a concern, it's best to identify it and try to find solutions around it, I think, in my mind. And that's what I'm hearing from many members right now.
So is the board direction, do you want this to be part of our workforce management report that's produced on a quarterly basis, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, that's a great solution.
Well, just hold on.
Yeah.
They're asking the board, as a board, we think it's good to have it quarterly. Okay, we'll have it quarterly with the workforce management. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And just, I have a couple more quick questions, Mr. Chair, if it's okay.
Okay.
And are we looking at municipalities across the country? I know some are looking at the possibility of requiring a WSIB doctor certified, a doctor that's certified as a WSIB doctor to qualify people in advance of them being able to go on accommodation. Are we looking at these as options?
Maybe I'll answer this one, Chief. I think to my colleague, some of it is in a collective agreement. Some police services have a different collective agreement.
Okay.
Some of it require a third-party doctor, and some don't. So, but I think we are working with our staff on this one. I'm not sure if Superintendent Bell wants to add any.
Yeah, what I can say is what we do is every time we receive a request for medical accommodation, we provide forms that are included in our collective agreement to try to get the best data that we can to look at what limitations an employee may or may not have. What I can tell you is that through that process, we do have success in challenging the information that's provided so that we can find the proper accommodation, if any exists, in the different circumstances. What we are looking for, as Mr. Chair said, is looking to move ahead to see when the best opportunity is, if we aren't getting the information we need, to use an independent medical exam.
And thank you for that, and I do respect our collective agreement. I'd hate to dive too far in the weeds on that, but I think it's something to keep in mind, as well as the fact, are we looking at what other forces are doing? I know they're looking at the fact They may be switching people from into an LTD position, a long-term disability position. If they're on accommodation for too long, are we also looking at switching to the civilian side? Look, frankly, we need boots on the ground, and if they have found a situation where they're unable to perform those duties, I think it behooves us not to look at keeping them in the force. They probably have a lot of valuable knowledge, but at the same time, having those spots open up for other people to come in that can get out and do the beat work.
Mr. Chair, there are processes in place for employees to move from active status to LTD. There's a process and a time frame associated with that. We have in the past, with officers who are no longer able to perform the functions of a police officer, offer them civilian positions. Granted, a police service of our size has many opportunities for police officers to still able to be performing the duties of a police officer. They may not be boots on the ground, but they are still contributing as police officers of this police service, and there are processes outlined in the Police Act that identify how we can transition from a sworn to civilian position. But those are far and few between, and I know in speaking to other chiefs, it's a lengthy process, but we also respect that the size of our organization. We want to be able to give an officer every chance they can to still contribute as a police officer in our organization.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Harder.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, before somebody comes onto the force and they've gone through all the steps and they meet all the requirements and that, is there no agreement that they have to understand that in the first 5 years you're not going to get to work days and no weekends? You're going to have to work through shift work, and you're going to have to learn by going through the various different departments and opportunities, and you're likely going to be you could be in the rural, on shift work and that. Is there no understanding of that? Because I'm going to be looking forward to what the percentage of the first 5 years people are that are accommodated, and then are there restrictions if they're accommodated for those purposes to stop them from working in the evenings at something else?
Mr. Chair, when we hire new police officers, it's generally understood that their first 5 years or so is spent in patrol. The challenge we have is that, not the challenge, the reality is that we have legislation around human rights code that we have to respect, and if a member comes forth with legitimate accommodations that falls under the classification of human rights, we have to respect that. If a member comes forth and talks about requiring a medical accommodation around a mental health issue that may have taken place as a result of a response to a call for service, we have to respect that. If a member in a pursuit, chasing somebody, jumps over a fence and tears his knee, and requires maybe 2 years worth of accommodations after surgery, we have to respect that. So a lot of things can happen within the first 5 years of a person's career, and frankly, I think patrol officers are the ones that are exposed to more events that they can get injured and suffer some injuries or illnesses that impact them in those first 5 years. So, I'll be interested. We haven't cut that data as far as the years of service, but the reality is we have to respect that. If the board wants to come up with a rule in the collective agreement that you got to be healthy for the first 5 years, if not, you're out of the police service. I'm sure that would be challenged.
Well, you can laugh if you want, but I look at the fact that once we find out what the percentage is and what the number is, if it's significant, the pressure it puts on everybody else is a problem. So then we end up having, I would think, if you're in a leadership role and you don't have enough support underneath you to fill wherever you're working, and you're missing somebody who, you don't have somebody to fill in because somebody else is accommodated, somebody who already is working all the shifts and that a person, unless they're being accommodated, would be working, then all of a sudden there's pressure on that person that they're either filling in themselves. And then I also look at the fact that I know that I think a lot of people that I talk to are people who are separated, divorced, and they have their children every second week. So that's part of the accommodation as well. But then those are the folks that are also working a heck of a lot, maybe of overtime. I'd like to know what the connection is on that, and I'm thinking about it from a human perspective, and you know, what the impact is on the rest of the force in trying to accommodate the people we are accommodating. So I think we need more discussion on this. I know that we've been talking about it around, and I'd like to know, are there any other forces in a different position? What about the fire department? I know that's a bad example because they only work 4 shifts a week and 7 hours or something like that, and you know, I mean, all of you are thinking some fire joke, I can tell you right now inside. But I mean, so that's a bad example. But other forces, does everybody give, I mean, everybody in Canada, or at least in Ontario, has the same human rights and all that kind of stuff that is their legal right. But does everybody treat this the same way without any regulations or challenges, I think is what I'm saying. So I'm not asking for you to have that answer, but when you come back the next time, perhaps we could have more information. Thank you.
So I'll need to be clear on what the inquiry is, and to say that we don't have regulations or rules, we have specific rules and regulations that we abide by, and we do you know, I get the sense that, you know, and even within the police force, you know, the word accommodation is a bad thing. I think as an employer, it's our responsibility to respect a member who comes forth with a legitimate medical issue that requires a temporary or a long-term accommodation. We owe it to the employees. It has an impact on our front line. Absolutely, that's the reality of the business we're in. And you know, other police services gather data. I do know. You know, I think we found it very difficult to get that data from them because it's gathered different ways. So compare.
No, but I'm just talking when you have, you know, you're a leadership role in Canada as a police chief. Our chair is in leadership role in Ontario and Canada. I would just like to know what others are doing, because I think that you know, for example, when I hear that a person that's accommodated only works X hours, but, you know, works in a bar downtown in the evenings, and why would we even consider accommodating somebody who is, we're giving them the prime time, great time, and then, but they also have another job. I mean, I just. Well,
Mr. Chair, there are people who have legitimate medical issues documented, that have been supported by a doctor, where they cannot work night shift for physical reasons. And does that prevent them from working at paid duty during the day? It shouldn't. I have no legal authority.
That's not what I said, though. I mean, I actually, no, I'm not going to belabor it. I'd like to have more information come forward.
So what is the specific information on the inquiry?
What was asked earlier by Member Turney, if it's possible to have this reported on accommodation when we have the quarterly report about the workforce management. That's the question. Okay. Now, if you can provide us with that, but I just want to remind the board member, this is is part of a collective agreement, and different police services have a different collective agreement. So we can talk to you about this at some other point, but right now, if that's the question, you like more information, we ask about. I spent a day with the OPP in Aurelia last Tuesday, and they showed me their well-being program and the accommodation they're doing, and I can tell you, it's a huge investment to try to reduce the number of accommodation. They're investing in health activities, in monitoring program. Anyway, so we can talk about this, but right now I think we get the direction, and staff's okay with the direction we have.
Just a follow-up?
No, hold on. We have the Vice Chair first. Mr. Vice Chair.
Just, and not to beat a dead horse, but, you know, I think that when Member Tierney started this, he started it with all the right intention, and I think out of this we are going to get some better reporting of how it's done. Better for the board, better for the management of the Ottawa Police Service. But to start to, any time, and I run my own business, I've only got 80 employees, I haven't got 600 and some, and it's, when you deal with people, it's a very complex business. And when you throw a collective agreement in on top of it, you add all sorts of things. So from just a personal note, I want to tell the chief and I want to tell all of the senior officers there that I have confidence that you are dealing with this properly. And that, yes, you know, we all hear little things on the street, and that's a bad thing. Anytime you get something third hand, it's never healthy. And yes, there is probably somebody who has diddled the system once or twice. When you have this many people, it happens. Shame on them. But it's not a shame on our management and our chief and the people who are responsible. And I think that has to come through clear, because we're drifting down a little path here that I'm not happy with, which seems to intimate that the tail is wagging the dog, and in this case, that's not happening.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. You still want to...
Yeah, just as a follow-up, back to the data component. There was one other thing I'd request that be in there, and maybe you can answer why this is. I brought this up at the time of the motion, and I think Jim's quite correct. It's good to have this data in front of us, because if we notice a trend, we can identify it and hopefully try to fix it. The one thing that has always been stuck in my craw about the accommodation side is are people that go on accommodation but have the ability to work paid duty. And my understanding is, and maybe you can explain it a little further, why they have that ability, and maybe in future reports, how many are also doing paid duty that are in that accommodation group.
So members who have certain accommodations or restrictions around the duties that they can perform, as long as their restrictions are respected, they can work paid duties. I'll use an example of somebody who can't work night shift for medical reasons. There's no reason why they can't do a paid duty during the day. So I think our paid duty process has a list of those people who have accommodations, and they will not give a paid duty that will go against their restrictions with respect to the duties that they are allowed to perform.
And that's very
Checks
good
and
to know.
balances in the system.
And we're required to do that. We don't have the option. We've been told by whether it's human rights or others that this is something that we have to provide.
Well, I have no authority to deny a person's paid duty if they can perform that function. If they can perform that shift, they can work that duty. I think the association would be the first ones on my door to knock on the door and file a grievance. Based on what grounds? Mm-hmm. As long as I'm respecting the restrictions and their accommodations, I see no reason why not to allow them to pay duties.
Okay. So on that, if it can just be part of the data that comes back, maybe you can draw correlations when you start seeing a lot of people working paid duty shifts and daytime shifts. This is something that I think is important, just as data coming back to the board.
Also, it's important to let the management manage, and also it's important to respect the collective agreement, because we are the one dealing with any time anything is not going cohesive with the collective agreement. That's something we're working on negotiation, and the only way we can deal with it through negotiation. So on the inquiry, is received with the direction to staff? Thank you. I'll come with it. Item number 15, and we do have a speaker on the item. I would like to, before I bring item, we also would like to recognize two of my colleagues here, Councillor Jody Medic and Councillor Riley Brockington. So on this item is number 3, response to inquiries about the marijuana dispensaries in Ottawa. We have Mr. Richard Berman, accompanied by a member of the Orleans community, including Pat Yorkie and Janet Arders. If you like to, I think just Mr. Berman speaking, if I'm not mistaken, and the other two for support. Yeah, you can guys take a seat on the front. Mr. Berkman, are you speaking alone or your folks speaking as well? Just so we know. Okay. So you have 5 minutes, and Mr. Berkman, you can start if you wish.
Thank you very much. I'll try to make this as short and sweet as possible. I grew up in Blackburn Hamlet. I'm now a resident of Orleans, a husband, a father of 3 children, and a local business owner and employer. I'm also a former sergeant in the RCMP and a graduate from UBC Law School. And as a police officer, I was sworn to impartially investigate and uphold the laws of Canada. I did that for almost 21 years. And I've also been in the position of enforcing laws, even though the Crown may not have chosen to lay charges in every case. And that's one of the points I want to address today. I think it's helpful to remind everyone here of what the role the police play in our legal and social order. For very good reasons, there is by intention a separation of enforcement, prosecution, and adjudication. And that's fundamental to the rule of law in Western democracy. And there were occasions when I was on duty where I would observe minor offenses and exercise discretion as to whether I would intervene. But there were many more situations where the nature of the offense that I came across was of such significance in my community that I simply had to do my duty to arrest, intervene, prevent the continuation of the offense, gather the evidence, and present it to Crown. It wasn't my role to become involved in politics. I swore an oath when I was a peace officer, as did every member of the Ottawa Police, and my role was to be unbiased, apolitical, and never appear to show favor to one group over another, lest I should risk bringing the administration of justice into disrepute. And my role was not to presume or presuppose the actions or decisions of the Crown, especially on serious or controversial matters. And what I think we're witnessing today, unfortunately, is an abdication of the duty of the police to enforce the Criminal Code of Canada as is currently written in the books. The police have entered the political realm, by presuming what the Crown will decide and what the law may or may not be some future time. So why does this matter? Not enforcing the existing laws matters deeply to at least 2 groups, business owners and parents. Honest, hardworking, self-reliant business owners in our community are suffering economically and are even destroyed when these illegal drugstores open up beside them. Loving and caring parents cry in disbelief when they walk their children to tutoring clinics and taekwondo studios that now have marijuana stores right beside them. A case in point from a business owner in Blackburn Hamlet, Mr. Sean Silva, unable to attend for reasons I'll explain shortly, runs a local real estate business on this road in Blackburn Hamlet and had this to say to me 3 days ago in an email, and I quote, "The recent actions by the landlord through his agent leasing the space 2 doors down from our office to this illegal operation has had a terminal effect on our business. We are in disaster recovery mode at this time, as over half of our business has disappeared. Timing is not good to attend this meeting, as we have many things that need our attention at this time. I hope your efforts at the meeting are fruitful." How then, we might wonder, is the business going for the Kumon tutoring clinic and the Taekwondo gym at the corner of St. Joseph and Orleans Boulevard, now that a store has opened up right in the same building they operate out of? And these businesses are real community builders. They're selling products and services that go to the heart of our local economies. They care deeply because their businesses and livelihoods are being destroyed while nothing is being done to help them. And we ought to ask ourselves tonight if this is right and just. Parents, of which I am one. In late September, a story appeared in the news showing a mother who was shocked and in tears with her 2 children beside her as she took them to the Kumon tutoring clinic at St. Joseph and Orleans Boulevard, marijuana odor wafting out the front doors as young males in their late teens or early 20s came and went. The juxtaposition and irony of this imagery could not be more poignant. Parents care about a lack of enforcement because they want to protect their kids from getting pulled down the path of the drug culture. They teach their kids to stay away from drugs. They don't want their kids anywhere near marijuana or drugs. And they don't want to open storefronts selling marijuana in their communities because it goes against what they're trying to teach their kids. They know it's not like selling beer. They know this industry is selling something studies have confirmed quadruples the risk of triggering schizophrenia among youth. And they've heard about the risk of permanently lowering their children's IQ. And these businesses are marketing directly to their children, their most precious loves, with candies, brownies, cookies, lollipops, and drinks sold under names like Midnight Crush, solely to be attractive to youth. They need our children to become their customers for tomorrow. Our innocent children are in this industry's crosshairs, and youth uptake is critical to the future of their business. So as parents, we consider all of this just way too much. It's a direct assault on our children. They feel like they have no voice, no support from our elected officials or our police. They're busy working and caring for children, and they can't take time to speak at a police services board meeting. And they're not paid lobbyists. This literally brings them to tears, as we've seen. And I'm here because I have a young daughter who attends Good Shepherd Church in Blackburn Hamlet. I'm here for all the many parents who just cannot take time to stand up. And I'm here so that at the very least my children know that I'm looking out for them. And today we have the police enforcing the criminal code and shutting down grow-ups in residential areas like the one on Radhika Court in my subdivision, for which I'm grateful, and our neighbors are grateful, and yet then allowing stores to open up the very same neighborhoods. And it's very difficult for parents to explain this kind of incongruence in logic to our children. So 3 questions and I'll be done. When will the police simply enforce the law that's currently on the books? Do you have any suggestions how local business owners and parents can stop the proliferation of these stores in our communities? And when will the public authorities stand up for us law-abiding business owners and parents of young children?
Mr. Berkman, let me begin by saying thank you for your service with the RCMP, and thank you for coming out here tonight. We'll hear from your colleagues, and then we'll turn it to our staff to comment on. Please proceed, ma'am.
I would just like to add that it's come to my attention through discussions with a few other friends that they are concerned if police resources are used to shut down marijuana shops, that then there won't be any resources used to for murders and break-ins and other things. It's my belief that if the laws are allowed to be flaunted by these marijuana shops, that crime will actually increase, that there may be vigilante action. Why wouldn't a youth think that what's the point of obeying the law if it's not even going to be enforced? I may as well text and drive, or whatever other break-in I can get away with. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I guess
Your name, you're Janet?
Janet Erdeg. Yes, I didn't really come prepared to speak today, just to add my support, but I would like to point out that Blackburn Hamlet has, in close proximity to the location of this projected marijuana store, 5 schools, elementary,
2 elementary.
middle school and high schools, all within like 10 minutes walking distance of this place. And we have in our community a subsidized housing area, a development that we were told was put in there to provide the children that live in this area to be influenced by the other residents in Blackburn Hamlet who, in the hopes that they would be a positive influence to help them have a better life than perhaps their parents had. And for us to have this come into that community so close is just, it just goes against everything we stand for in Blackburn Hamlet. And I think we need to find a way to stop it from happening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to all 3 of you. If you can turn your mic off, please, so we can have the chief. We heard a couple of questions, chief, from our deputy chief's going to speak to it. Deputy Skinner.
Thank you very much for coming here and telling us the things that are happening in Orleans. That's actually part of our request from the community, and I know I've had many conversations with city councillors in the same regard. Medical marijuana has been legislated by the federal government, and they are allowed. There are strict rules around them, and we are trying to enforce those rules along with the city licensing people, and anyone else that we can draw into problem solving. So what we've asked is that we get complaints from the community on locations, and you spoke about projected location. Is this one actually opened or it's coming?
It has wax paper on the windows and little lights in the back, and it looks like it's a building. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So in that regard, those are the complaints that we need. We've actually facilitated people being able to make these complaints. You can do those online. What we have done is we've approached the federal prosecutor, the federal Crown, to ensure that they are willing to prosecute. Because the legislation is so new, we wanted to ensure that they were on board with us, and they are. But there are quite a checklist of evidence that we have to produce before we're going to be in a position that we can actually prosecute or present a case for prosecution. So that's where we are right now, is itemizing the pieces of evidence that we need to have to prove that they are breaching the legislation.
May I just, I have a letter from, a response from federal MP Andrew Leslie, where he advised me that there is no gray zone, I quote, or ambiguity here. Cannabis is only permitted to be sold by licensed vendors through the mail, as local dispensary would not have the required federal license and is therefore clearly operating outside the law. As such, this dispensary would be totally unregulated and a risk to its customers. So I guess in that context, I would pose the obvious question that a child would ask. When you see lollipops and cookies and iced tea drinks with 150 milligrams of THC, is that for a medicinal purpose? Is that... So I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
So what we can tell you is that we are actively investigating those that have opened up. We have met with the federal Crown, and they have agreed to prosecute those. But there is quite a lot of work that needs to be done in presenting a case for them to prosecute, and that's what we're in the process of doing on certain of the facilities. We don't have, as a police service, the ability to say you can't open. We don't have that legal authority. You talked about suggestions as far as how to prevent this from happening. Perhaps the city, through licensing, could strengthen its bylaws with respect to permit allocations, with respect to these types of establishments opening up, that they would require a license by the city. So that's something perhaps that the city could do in advance to prevent them from actually opening up. And as a police service, and I can tell you, speaking with Chief Saunders in Toronto, their approach to aggressively targeting, enforcing, I would say 3/4 of the ones they've shut down have reopened up in other locations. So the police, again, don't have the authority to shut down a place. We'll do an investigation, we'll get a warrant, we'll seize the evidence, charge the people, and then they have every ability to open up in another location to meet the demand that's out there. So that's the challenge that we have, but I can assure you we are investigating. There may be some charges laid, and we're also working with the city in other areas around the current laws that exist within bylaws to, and we've also had some success with putting pressure on landlords of these establishments where businesses have actually shut down because of the attention that we've paid in the area.
I appreciate that, and there's a lot of smart people in this room, so this is a good place to have this discussion. But I wonder if the law does change, if it actually comes out and says that this kind of activity is not allowed, then you'll be faced with having to enforce that. That will be now on your table. And
Mr. Berkman, we usually don't have that exchange. You asked the question, but I have a couple of questions myself because I'm the author of that of the inquiry. Chief, one of the questions been asked by my colleague and by our resident. Can the police confiscate illegal drugs, yes or no? Confiscate it and put it away without link charges. Because when I read the Attorney General's comment said it's up to the police to enforce the law, clearly he's putting the oath on us to act. Now, a lot of times police officers, and I heard it time and time again, they can confiscate drugs from individual, illegal drugs, and they don't lay charges. You can just store it and don't lay charges. And why don't we go to those stores who have a legal product, as we speak today, and confiscate it? And just put it out. You don't have to lay charges. I understand the Crown is not... Can we hear folks? Can we, please?
Mr. Chair, we can't just go into any store and confiscate illegal material. We require a search warrant. And for us to state a search warrant, we have to do investigations. So prior to us obtaining a search warrant, we have to do the investigation. That is done by observations. That is done by sending officers in undercover to buy the materials, and then building that case to demonstrate that they were actually trafficking a substance, and then working with the medical marijuana licensing issue and that act. But you raise a good point with respect to the impact of new legislation that comes in. Most often when these new laws are enacted, the police service at the local level are left with the implementation and the enforcement regulations without new resources. So if we legalize marijuana and then we have all these shops that we have to look at, that's new business for us that we have to add on to the work that we have now. So that's something that's never taken into consideration. You look at the impact on impaired driving and drug driving now, if it's made legal, purchasing new equipment to be able to test that. Those are all issues that fall upon local police services with no new money whatsoever, and we have to reprioritize all the work that we're doing to fit that into our already busy agendas.
Have we tried and we didn't get a search warrant from a Crown? Because if that's the case, you should come up publicly and saying the Crown is not given search warrant, because the Attorney General himself saying it's up to the police to enforce it has left the window in the community to say, well, it's up to the police.
Mr. Chair, I believe you spoke to the Ontario's Attorney General. They have no jurisdiction on this. It's the Federal Crown, Federal Prosecution's Office that actually oversees the Controlled Drug Substances Act, and I'm not going to compromise any investigation with respect to what we've done so far with respect to undercover purchases or with specific establishments in our city. But I can assure you that our drug section has open investigations and is targeting some of those establishments.
Okay, any other question to this inquiry? Thank you very much, Mr. Berkman. Really thank you for your service, and thank you for coming out here tonight. I share your frustration. On the item, receive. This is a cop-out. Do we still have any? I believe that will conclude our meeting in the public. We have a special meeting Wednesday, November 9 at 8:30 a.m. to be tabling the budget. And the regular meeting is Wednesday, 28 November at 4 p.m. Thank you very much, folks, and we adjourn.